Okay, guys, so thank you so much for joining us today. As Janelle mentioned, my name is Misha Hall, and this is Renee Martin. I am one of the business development managers here at Gallery Group. I've had experience in the industry for over the past 8 years, and my colleague here, Renee Martin, is our social impact housing specialist. Her specialty area is the NDIS and what we call SDA. Renee, would you like to explain what that is to people?
Yeah, thanks. So being with Gallery now, heading up the social impact housing division, within that we do social, affordable and community housing, but as Misha mentioned, I specialise in the SDA space. SDA housing is the scheme that is attached to the NDIS for participants needing better housing outcomes if they've got a disability, and they get funded through their NDIS plan. Our inclusive range covers the SDA space, so we have a full inclusive range whereby our accessibility housing is rolled out through that. We offer it in a really different light, so the way that we bring SDA housing to the market is completely different to what's been seen to date. And yeah, it's a really great product in the market. It creates optimal return for the clients, but also our focus is the participants that are going into these homes. So we have a really great outcome for the participants. We're going to speak further about how we do it. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So you want to touch on that first before SMSF?
I'll touch on SMSF first. So really, the reason why we created our SMSF solution at Gallery Group is because we saw a significant gap in the marketplace. That gap was that typically investors were only able to purchase SMSF properties like an apartment or a townhouse because the single contract suits the SMSF purchasing criteria. There are other players in the marketplace, which I'm sure everyone here is aware of, companies like One Contract Property, which allow purchasers to buy house and land via their SMSF. But those businesses incur quite a large cost. We were actually approached by a lender. We were approached by Westpac because they saw our financial model. They were impressed by the way that Gallery were able to produce reports very, very quickly and get a very fast snapshot. They approached us and offered us an SMSF funding facility so that we were able to offer single contract to all of our investors across all of our house and land product. This has really allowed us to offer something entirely different to our referral partners. And what that does is it covers each of our product types. So any one of our products you can convert into a single contract. We do that by way of a calculator, which we share with our referral partners. So I'm going to share my screen just for a moment so that I can show everyone what the calculator looks like. Is that okay with you, Janelle?
Yes, definitely. Yep. Please do.
Beautiful. So as you can see here, here's my screen. I'll just move it down so I can get to the calculator. Beautiful. So this is what our single contract solution, well, what have I done here? Whoops. Sorry, guys. Thanks for being patient with me. So this is our single contract calculator. So what it really allows people to do is to look at any of our contracts or any of our properties which are available on our stock list, and that is also our NDIS product as well. All you need to do in order to see how much that would cost your client and what the uplift is on the contract is simply to plug in the land purchase price. So say the land purchase price is $525,000 and the build price is $500,000. And I'm just putting these numbers in because they're easy for us to calculate together here today. So we know how much that total contract price is, but then we press calculate the cost and it immediately allows you as the partner to see what that's going to look like for your client. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily show them all of these breakdown of costs because that's not something that you would show to someone, but it's good for you as a sales partner to understand what the uplift in that contract price is and what's involved in it. So you can see here, we are not adding in any commissions whatsoever. We're legally not allowed to. In order for us to have this lending facility from Westpac, CBA and Latitude Finance, we have to ensure that these are the only charges that we're actually including in that contract price. So you can see down here, it'll showcase exactly what's required from the investor. So the deposit of 30% and the balance that's required. So this is what's required overall. And you can imagine how powerful this facility is for everyone working with clients who are looking for a better product to, gain investment benefit in their SMSF. Does anyone have any questions while I'm still on this?
I'm all good. Anybody else got questions? Remember that you guys are muted as well, so you need to unmute.
Quickly, you're saying that's 1,025,000,
Yes,
but after the funding, it's 1,126,000.
correct.
So there's 100,000 uplift for the funding.
Yep. So as you can see here, thanks for that question, Gary. So that's a great question and important for everyone else on this call to get an understanding of what's going into that cost. So you can see here, it's approximately, so it's working out to be 9.89% uplift in the total contract price. So what those uplift components are, you can see here, it's the stamp duty, it's your legal fees, it's the council rates, the land tax, any mortgage fees. Now, the reason why there's mortgage fees, stamp duty, legal fees is because we're not just using the pool of funds that we have available from Westpac, CBA or Latitude. We're actually taking out a single mortgage for each of these deals. So it means that your client has that added extra layer of protection on these single contracts. So they're not just in a pool of funds, it's actually their own personal mortgage that we're taking out for each of these deals. Does that make sense, Gary?
Yeah, but it's a 100,000 uplift.
Yes, because we're passing on the fees that we're incurred in order to create the single contract to the client.
Yep.
That's all we're passing on. There's absolutely zero commissions whatsoever. And you can see here in this calculator what the breakdown of those costs are. So it's very transparent.
And typically to date, any single contract product that has been in the market has been significantly higher than this.
Much higher.
So if you've worked with any other single contract companies out there, they are a higher deposit rate, but also their uplift was sitting around, I think, 17%.
Yep.
Which is so this is the best product in the market in regards to creating single contract opportunities for clients. Obviously, Gallery take the risk while purchasing the land and taking the mortgage and developing that property throughout construction. So yeah, there's a few different variances as to why they're attached.
Yeah, so it's about 10%. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
correct.
Yes.
Our question is, what's the $41,000 single level up to 250 square meters? What is
The
that?
$41,000. So that's the interest calculated across the build.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
While it's being built.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Great
In
question,
case
Peter.
if the bill get delayed, is there any extra cost involved?
So typically,
I was going to say the HIA contract is we have to pay late fees and things like that anyway for delays. Obviously, it refers back to your HIA contract.
So across Gallery, and the only product that isn't included in these guarantees because it's such a different product and build type. So the NDIS properties are not included in this, but for our standard, our traditional, our co-living, our dual keys, we have 3 guarantees across all of those. So we have a 28-day site start guarantee. We also have an 18-week build time guarantee. So those aren't just little pieces of paper that we sign and pass on to our partners. This is actually included in every single Gallery HIA contract, and our liquidated damages are much higher than other builders as well. We're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about delivering excellent results in a very sharp time frame to our partners and their clients.
But to speak on any extra charges, this is a fixed price contract. So there would be no extra added interest rate charges or anything like that.
No.
If we were to go over time, that doesn't get attached to this. This is a single price contract. So the fixed price in
Yeah.
your HIA contract.
So essentially it's Gallery saying, we are not, well, I'll just submit, Chris. It's in our best interest to build it in the correct time frame because we're not passing on any additional interest or costs to the client.
Mm.
Did you have any, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, perfect.
You're welcome.
Just a comment from my side, Chris, for you as well. Why the buyer should go for this sort of package? If there is an established property which is 1 year, probably they might get cheaper because not all the stamp duty and all added costs are there.
What's the benefit of them
I
going
think he does, Chris.
up? Yeah.
Established home, yeah. Because now we are adding, of course, I'm not saying that you're charging overcharging. That's correct structure. If somebody wants to buy in SMSF brand new, yes, that's perfect. But when buyer is, if you put into the buyer shoes, okay, I'm putting 100,000 more. If I go into the market, say example, $600,000 house, yeah. So probably it will cost through SMSF 660, 10 to 12% more. Versus I might get in the market 1 year old house for 625, 620 or 600. So I mean, it's our buyer's problem, buyer's agent problem, yeah. So
Look,
this
it's
is very
really-
difficult to justify.
Vickers, it's really, I suppose, what you need to establish before looking for a property for a client, whether it's established or it's brand new, is what's the outcome that you're trying to achieve for the client? What are their goals? Is it to be a financial uplift? Is it going to be capital growth? Are they looking for returns? Like that's what needs to be established first. And then comparing the two products, whichever one you're looking at, if that will be a brand new house and land package, excellent. Review that package as a whole compared to the client's goals. And then if it suits better, go for an established property. I personally would always recommend brand new because of the tax benefits, but it really does, it depends on the client and it depends what you're trying to achieve for them.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question as well, please?
Of course.
Yeah. So obviously on top of any other costs, there's advisory and legal to get the trusts and everything else set up. Do you have a preferred supplier that you work with for that?
Definitely. So I'm more than happy to share those suppliers. So we have a fantastic broker team. We have a fantastic conveyancing team that we can refer any of your clients onto that's specifically working on these deals and have worked with us on a number of occasions that have a very good understanding of the space. So I will share that with Janelle post meeting and she'll be able to distribute that to everyone on this call.
And just to touch on that, I've done this process with a community housing provider recently who wanted to do 14 dual occupancy projects for community housing under the HIF fund, so the Housing Investment Fund that's being delivered at the moment. It allowed them to not have to tender out the job. So this is why they went down the process of single contract. So this works for SMSF, but it also works for single contract. So community housing providers are loving that because it's taking about 18 months out from what they're trying to achieve in the market to deliver homes. And with our 18-week build guarantee and 28-day site start, under the other part of the social impact housing, under our community, social and affordable housing, it's a really great outcome for providers that are wanting to deliver houses faster without having to tender the job. So, and given Gallery have such exclusivity across lots of developments in Southeast Queensland, we get a lot of land options given to us off market. So we can bring those, I package up those options to community housing providers all the time.
Just another quick question. If you can buy the land, then you don't need to worry about the fund. You can just fund the bill, can't you? If
Of
it's
course,
separate,
yeah.
you can just buy the land and it's problem solved.
Yeah. We have a lot of people who come to us with land that they've found. We will have our team review it and, you know, obviously work with the client, get an understanding of what they'd like to build there. And then we have our team, we have our own in-house drafting team who can package up for us. So I'll let Renee, I'll stop sharing and I'll let Renee speak to our NDIS solution now.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, we cover the SDA space really well. So the way that we've been doing it is it's changing the industry and what to the market. We reverse engineer how we do it. So I come from a SDA disability background, social services type background, whereby we were seeing a lot of participants being forgotten about in this space, and they weren't the forefront of what was being delivered to the market. I also seen a lot of mum and dad investors be burnt to buy a spruiked property in the market, basically saying that they're going to get huge returns, but they're buying into a clustered space of SDA housing. So we really wanted to change the model on how it was being delivered to the market. And by doing that, we are achieving significantly different and greater outcomes for our participants. And then in return, through the longevity of the tenancy, a fantastic outcome for investors. So how we do it is we're reverse engineering our SDA model. So we're out there constantly talking to our wider network in the NDIS space. So that is support coordination, that is allied healthcare, that is community housing organisations, that is hospital liaison offices, it is large SIL operators that are operating SDA homes and SDA providers. We're talking to them about real on the ground demand. What does that look like? Who are we wanting to support? What category does that look like? And from that, we're able to bring that information in-house. And we have a full land acquisitions team. So we go out, I give them my hit list, and we go out and we find really fantastic infill lots and built up communities, estates where it's still a really great outcome for clients, and knockdown rebuilds and boutique mini developments. So that looks like, are we close to local infrastructure? Are we close to local shops, Woolies, cafes, things like that, public transport, parklands, and support networks? So are we close where people actually are employed to provide supports for these people on the NDIS scheme? And then we go a little bit further and we go, it's a full participant-led design. We want to make sure that this home is comfortable. It is a form of social housing that unfortunately forces shared housing. So you will have two participants in one home. So can we do a larger participant bedroom with a leisure space, a secondary media? So there is individualized media spaces or living spaces to entertain friends. And where possible, if it's available, if the land allows it and if the investor has funds, private alfrescos off their own bedrooms. So we have a real range of different opportunities in the SDA design space. We have 2 SDA draftees in-house, so we can custom design. And then we bring a package, we call it a live opportunity. We bring that live opportunity to our referral partners that have been approved for SDA from Gallery to sell our inclusive range. And so what we're producing to the market is it's like a boutique offering. It's really SDA, it's participant led, it's SDA provider endorsed, and it's demand driven. So we're ensuring that the SDA providers that we work with, there's 3 or 4, checking over our plans, making sure that the location is suitable, there is actually real demand, and it's hitting the unmet need that's in that current area. And so basically we are delivering homes in the SDA space where there is little to no supply. So we definitely stay away from the oversaturated areas. I know them well, and I know many clients that want to move out of those spaces. And then we also want to ensure that the longevity and the tenancy is there and it's comfortable, and participants start, realizing or talking, and, word spreads very quickly that they're in a Gallery home, and, everybody wants the same. So that's kind of how we're delivering SDA to the market and making sure that it's really a really great outcome for the participant at the forefront of everything we do.
And just to add to that, to give everyone on this call a really good idea of how impressive Gallery's solution is, we had a major SDA provider come in and have a meeting with us, and his first words that he said when he sat down with us were, how did you get this block of land? How did you find something in this area? This is exactly what we've been looking for. Can you bring me more of these? I have so many people who are looking for something, who are calling my office every single day looking for something like this. We need more of these in the marketplace. So if we're having SDA providers come to us, what that means is that every single one of the SDA homes that we're building will definitely have participants. It will be helping, we're building a solution to an issue that's been experienced in the marketplace where there aren't enough homes in areas where there is significant demand.
And in areas where there's little to no supply. We only endorse a 2-participant model unless there's a specific requirement that there is some clients coming out of the previous group homes style, legacy stock, things like that, that want to stay together. We'll happily build a solution for clients that want to be in that environment. But to your typical investment market or someone looking to get into SDA, we don't endorse any more than 2 participants because that's not what's wanted from the participants themselves. So at the forefront of everything we do and what I do, I'm very passionate about the outcome for the people and making their housing solution suitable for them, which creates livability, comfortability, and all round, enjoying life. So that's sort of our aim, and that's what we're doing, and it's been very successful.
I would like to ask about SDA provider. Is your SDA provider able to provide some sort of track record in terms of their success in putting in participants in NDIS properties?
Yeah, look, we don't deal with one SDA provider as such. We deal with 3 or 4. When the client gets green lighted, so basically their build is moving forward and they're going to slab, we do an introduction to those different SDA providers. It's up to the investor or the owner, the purchaser of the property to engage with whoever they see fit for them. So every SDA provider is different. And yes, they all have that information available to them, Bob, about, placements, demand, capacity. Essentially, they can tell you, if you took them a property and you said, I was building in the Gold Coast and what's the demand like, they would be able to share that information with you, let you know that there's probably a wait list for somewhere like the Gold Coast. But the reason why we give a choice is because we want the client to feel comfortable and not pushed into one solution. And every SDA provider is different. Whether their head lease is different from the terms of engagement, whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, their fees and charges, their tenancy procurement fees. So we don't deal with just one.
So your process flow when the green light is given, how many weeks is that towards the before the participants move into the property?
So that's at slab stage. So I encourage clients to make those initial engagements with the SDA provider so they can choose their provider by the time the slab goes down. They can basically market that property throughout construction. So by the time it comes to handover, they would have had expressions of interest from participants. From handover, so when the house gets handed over to the client or to the SDA provider, it then needs to be enrolled into the scheme, and that can have a time frame attached to it as well, anywhere from can be 4 to 6 weeks maybe. You'd want to hope that your anchor tenant, which is your first tenant moving into the property, would be organised, ready to go in once that enrolment has been completed. So I always encourage clients to have a holding cost there in that initial from handover, up to 10 weeks, I would say, comfortably. And then to get your second participant, sometimes they come together and they're already matched up front and their roster of care has been matched and the SIL operator has been agreed upon. Sometimes it takes a bit longer to match the second participant based on complexity of needs, support, and agreeing to a SIL operator to operate the OOA space.
It all sounds very good, but in actual fact, there are delays happening when participants are moving in, because sometimes SDA provider is failing in delivering their promise. So how do you filter your SDA provider that they are up to scratch with what they claim to be,
Look,
they are efficient or things like that?
So I come from an SDA provider background, so I know the industry well, and we only basically recommend people in the marketplace or space, however you want to say it, that we believe are doing a really great job. And we also, obviously there's no guarantees because they are a third party, but they don't get paid unless there's a participant in place. And most of them are really encouraged by placing participants into homes. They want to make sure there's a great outcome for those clients that they're working with. But there's always delays, but I just know when you get the ingredients right or the modeling right, which is how we're doing it, we're modeling it different than what's been done to the market, is that the demand levels and the supply levels are so different to how we're delivering it. So there's little to no supply and the demand is high. So when you put those ingredients together, you get a really fantastic outcome. But of course, whenever you're dealing with an organization, there can be delays sometimes. I appreciate that, and I have seen it in the market, but that's not what we're experiencing at the moment.
Thank you.
Amisha, I just have one more question. I've lately seen a product in the market, what they advertise as a dual key NDIS home. That means 2 occupants on one side and another occupant on another side. Do you have something similar in mind for Gallery Group or not thought of yet?
So we do a dual property where we have we've delivered a few of these. It's very specific to land, so the land needs to match it, where it's actually a house and a villa on the same parcel of land on the same title. So it's not such a dual key as such, but it's more a house and a villa. And the reason why we've done it that way is to get the category design under an SDA compliance. So if you do a dual key, it's likely you'll be categorized as a villa model. So the funding attached to that changes. So if you do a house and a villa model, the funding is significantly different.
Okay. Yep.
Is there any other questions? Anyone burning questions around the SDA space?
Other thing I've observed in the market is since I've started business new, but some people advertise like 20% return, 18% and 22%, whereas from property in a box is typically 10 and 11, 12% max. So I'm still getting my head around. Chris says that it is more realistic, but at one or other time, if I'm selling the product, I have to tell to the customer client what is right and why ours is showing less.
Look, we want realistic expectations first and foremost. Anyone that is claiming to have those really high yields are likely to be going into a cheaper or low socioeconomic areas, stating that you're going to get 2 or 3 participants, and the likelihood of that outcome is unlikely. So we don't see that happening in the marketplace. And we also, the likelihood of property in a box probably are being a little bit more conservative as well. We do have yields that we project out there, and they sit between 13 and 16%, and that is a realistic expectation in the marketplace for an SDA property.
Okay.
Got heaps.
That is based on 2 participants in the house.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So what is your experience in terms of putting in 2 participants in each NDIS home?
Yes, it happens often. I've got quite a few clients that are going for their second or third property and are building out portfolios. In fact, prior to me being with Gallery Group, I was consulting to some really large institutional funds and superannuation groups, equity groups, developing out their portfolios in the SDA space, and often saw successes with 2 participants. It's hard to get the third. That's why we only endorse the 2 participant model. And for the single villa option, that's an easy fill.
So you sound to be very successful in Queensland. Are you
Yes.
branching out in other states?
No, we're only in Southeast Queensland.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It is a
Thanks.
really fantastic model, but we have really great oversight on everything we do here in Southeast Queensland, from our trades to our supplies, which allows our timeframes to stay, basically at the front of the market.
Yeah, a critical item that you just mentioned. You said that some of these NDIS homes that are promising so much interest rate to be on the lower economic strata. What is the profile of your participants?
So typically a high physical support, fully accessible and improved livability. We don't really do robust with everyday investors because it is a design that was targeted for a specific type of person and supports. And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation in the market and not everybody understands the robust property or client that goes into a robust property. That's really only designed for single occupancy. So we really only work with larger SDA organizations that build these for their clients, but typically high physical support and improved livability.
Right. That's interesting because I believe that with what is the reason of your model, the high improved livability, so that you have a long-standing tenant all the way through, that they could alter their lives could be altered, their health could alter, so therefore they don't have to move, therefore they just stay put in the house. So long-term tenancy is your object.
Yeah, absolutely. Longevity in the tenancy. And if you think about somebody who would be funded for improved livability, they have full capacity of their body. They may have a slight vision impairment or a psychosocial disability. It might be someone with mild autism or Down syndrome, and they being independent in a home like improved livability really obviously makes a huge difference in their life. We see a lot of aging out parents that have had their children at home very successfully until a time when they need to go into aged care. A lot of the improved livability clients come from that sort of situation as well. And yes, I have seen huge successes in IL.
Finally, your certification of occupancy, is that issued upfront or after the property is fully built?
Fully built. It needs to be issued in line with the SDA certification as well.
Because some builders are issuing a certificate of compliance in front. Some developers are doing that.
Certificate of
So,
SDA compliance up front.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think I believe so. Yeah, because they submit all the necessary documentations of the build, and I have done just recently one, and that was the differentiating offering they have in the marketplace. This is not in Queensland. This is built in Victoria.
Under the SDA legislation, which is a federal legislation, the SDA certification compliance can only be issued at the end of the build because it has to be visually inspected by the SDA provider. The compliance that you may be referring to is the design compliance. So you can get certificate of compliance up front. We actually provide that by our SDA provider, but not the overall compliance because that has to have a visual inspection on completion.
Right. So when that happens, that's when they give out the green light.
No, sorry, green light's right at the beginning when you're going into construction. So that's when it's unconditional. BA's been done, plans have been approved, plumbing approval's been approved, and it's going to site. That's called green light. And that's when the SDA information pack gets given over to the client because that's their next step to engage in their provider. At handover, that's when the client gets the property handed over. If they're not there, it goes to the SDA provider. That's when all the certification, including final SDA certification and enrollment documents, are issued.
I see. So when do you suggest that the client or the investor meet up with your SDA provider in order to stitch up the whole package so that the transition of providing tenants into their property will be seamless?
Yeah, so at Greenlight, we encourage you to make those connections straight away and take 1 to 3 weeks, however much time you need. And it would be my recommendation to be engaged with your SDA provider by the time the slab goes down of the property, because I would, the most success comes from preparation. So from a participant point of view, participants have to apply for funding if it's not already in their plan. That can take a few months. So if you're engaged with your SDA provider by slab stage, they start marketing the property out to all the necessary NDIS, SDA portals, you get expressions of interest. That client's funding might be great, or they might need to apply for more, or a top up, or they might need to go to AAT, and there's lots of variances. So the sooner you're engaged with your SDA provider, the sooner you are marketing that property, the likelihood of having someone move into the property faster at completion is higher.
Con, did
Thank
you have
you.
thanks, Bob. Con, did you have a question that we could answer for you? You've got your hand up.
Thank you, ladies. Amazing job, by the way. Suggestion I've got a group that I superannuation funds, and they want to buy 10 properties all at once.
Okay.
Their monthly objective is obviously make sure the properties are tenanted, because obviously it's an investor's point of view, and they don't care if they get a little bit less rent, providing the properties are tenanted upon completion. How do we go about that?
So you're looking for, they want to buy properties off somebody else that's been built and completed as a stabilized investment, or are they wanting to build and complete themselves?
Yeah, they want to buy their final product. I mean, they want to, even off the plan, they don't mind doing that as well. Basically, they're investors. They just want to invest the money on this particular concept. And they said to me, Con, doesn't have $1 million or $10 million. We just want the return.
Yeah, right. Look, those are really hard to find. They're called unicorns in the market, because anything that's a stabilized SDA investment's returning a great income. And if they sell them, that they're hard to come by. I mean, it's something we can probably discuss out of this, where we can look to place them into 10 different properties. But unfortunately, there's no rental guarantee as such. But even with one participant in each property, they would be getting a really great outcome. There's also another market where there's a lot of families looking to be placed into SDA homes, and investors, unfortunately, have been turning these families away. It is one SDA participant with funding. They apply, it's called Appendix H, under their plan, and their family can live with them exclusively in this property. And I have lots of families that are looking for that option. But we can absolutely have a further chat, Con, on how we can best cater to your clients' needs, because I have significant experience in the space of institutional or superannuation funds buying properties like that.
Chris got my details, so please feel free to contact me, and maybe we can have a meeting next few days. It'd be great.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you, ladies. Amazing job, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, I'm conscious of time. We've gone 10 minutes over. Does anyone have any? Yeah, we love to talk, as you can tell. Does anyone have any final questions before we wrap up this session?
Hello, guys. Any questions?
Just very quick one, if I may. When it comes to funding and finance, as we all know, a lot of bankers, a lot of financial institutions look at the project as residential. Do you guys recommend someone that look at the NDS properties more as a commercial point of view?
Yeah, it's a better outcome ultimately. We work exclusively, we recommend a broker that we work with. They do all of our SDA funding if a client doesn't have a broker in place. And what we've found, even with clients that do have brokers in place that don't understand the SDA space, the likelihood of them getting knocked back has been very high. You really need to understand the product and how it can be valued. It comes down to the valuation. Yes, it's a residential property, but to include the SDA income in your finance application, it needs to be valued commercially to include that SDA income.
Correct.
So it is a better outcome all round to do it commercially.
You're really better off.
If you can share the information, it'd be great.
Yeah. So after this session, because I can see you've asked a question, so where is the calculator? So after this session, I'll shoot through a link. I'll shoot through an email to Janelle with some links that we would like to share with everyone on this call. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Janelle and the guys, and we will do our best to come back to you as soon as possible.
Sorry, can I ask a final question?
Sure.
The SMSF doesn't allow investors to withdraw their money from their own industry super fund and put it as part and parcel of their outlay for the deposit? And is there any assistance that can be expected from Gallery?
So are you talking about us setting up the trust for the client?
Yeah, do you provide that seamless structure of selling a property as an SMSF and providing the investor assistance in setting up their trust and
We
trust
don't
deed?
set up their trust, but we can definitely connect you and your clients, Bob, to people who are fantastic in the space.
Yeah.
And they are able to be are they able to access their superannuation funds from their industry super funds as part and parcel of their deposit
think that's
purchase
an
in the
accounting
IS
That,
fund?
that's really that's a bit of more of an accounting question, Bob. I wish I had those answers for you. What I can do is connect Janelle and the team with someone who will be able to answer that question for you.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. So Barack, so warranties on the property from the builder.
Hey folks, yeah, that's me. Kaiser, how you doing, guys? You good?
Hey, Barack.
Well, I mean, it's my computer name, but my name is Kaiser.
Oh, Kaiser.
Hey, just a few questions, right? Of course, like warranties. Then client also have in their mind, okay, cool, you guys have SDA agencies, and where we will be looking for the participants to move into the property. And I'm also under the impression that there are multiple different categories when it comes to the participants. So one occupant, two occupants, dual income, of course, that's the option there. So do you guys like deal in just the one occupant or two occupants? Number one. Number two is, for instance, like if anything happens in regards to those participants, if they decide, because of course the government is actually covering their ass, which means they will be putting their preference first in case they change their mind, they didn't like the suburb, they didn't like the layout and everything, and they wanted to move out. In that space, what's going to happen for the client? Because that income, is it covered by the government? And if it is, then from an SDA agency, will they be working tirelessly to actually find someone to quickly move in? Because I'm also under the impression there is a data on each suburb, which also tells us like how many participants are actually in that particular area. So how do you guys roll that from a client acquisition point of view, and how we can address these questions to them?
Yeah, no worries. We did cover earlier, so you must have missed that part, but that's absolutely fine. It's recorded and you can rewatch it again. But we only endorse a 2-participant model in the space, so we don't do 3 participants. So anything that we're bringing to as a live SDA opportunity, it's a 2-participant model. Sometimes we did speak about the dual. Sometimes it's a 2-participant home and a single occupant IL or HPS home. So there could be 3 clients on one parcel of land. From there, the participants are under a residential tenancy agreement, just like any other tenant in any other investment property. They generally sign up for 12 months. And if they want to move out, it's a similar situation. They're breaking a lease just like you normally would under an RTA agreement. They are responsible until a new participant is found. And it works as a standard sort of tenancy agreement in that sense. If the client, however, was to fall sick or worst case scenario, pass away, and it does happen, the funding is actually covered for 90 days from the government. So if the client ends up in hospital and they can no longer return back to that property, there is a cover there to protect the investor and allow the SDA provider time to replace the client. And just like a standard investment property, you are doing renewals. So when it's coming up 3 months prior to renewal, they're giving the tenant option to renew their tenancy agreement. If they're not going to, the provider then starts advertising a vacancy and also going out to their network to try and fill that vacancy when it's about to come out.
So in any given scenario, for instance, the SDA, I'm just saying hypothetically, right? So SDA couldn't find a participant, or maybe they bring in a robust participant on the property. Or say, for example, in the first scenario, that they couldn't find a participant under those 3 months. What would happen then? Would the client should be forking out that money from their pocket to cover the expenses? Because that's actually a commercial asset. I mean, yes, it's a residential, but it's an investment opportunity. So, in that regard, what would you advise to the client, in order to tackle that?
Yeah, look, it's one of those risks associated with SDA housing. It's a standard investment property. If there's no tenant in place, there's no income, and that is one of the risks that are associated with owning any investment property. If there's a vacancy and you're not getting income, I appreciate that it can be a commercial asset. So by following the model that we're delivering, it's a totally different type of perspective, because we're going to locations where there's that higher demand, right? So because we're going where there's little to no supply, or into already built out neighborhoods, so the streetscapes are different, we're not finding that those vacancy rates are high. Vacancy rates are high in oversaturated, low socioeconomic areas where there's been a huge amount of SDA homes delivered to date with 3 participant housing models. So yeah, unfortunately, it's just one of those risks that are associated. No tenant, no income.
So from your case study, I mean, how often do you see these sort of scenarios, fall into the basket, and how you tackle them?
And I think it's really great to know that if you've got one participant in place and the second person moves out, that anchor tenant is still going to be a cash flow positive income. It's still going to be covering the costs of the property. So the likelihood of having 100% vacancy is highly unlikely. I think there can be movement on the second participant sometimes, but if you get a really great provider that matches tenants together well, that risk is, you're mitigating that risk by trying to do the best in the SDA space in the market.
Sure. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, guys. I feel like
All
Chris
right.
is telling us that we've taken up more time than what we had allocated.
Yeah, but we are very happy with your presentation. But sorry, guys, our members, we have to finish up now, and because we have another presenter who will be discussing a different topic. So I would just like to thank Renee and Misha for the very wonderful and informative presentation. So any further questions, guys, for Gallery Group, please email me. My email address is in the chat box. So I'm looking forward to the more information from Misha regarding this presentation, and I'll be sure to send it out to all our members. Thanks again,
Wonderful.
Misha and Renee. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.